All right. So the this is your first call, and so the place to start is at the very beginning. And the very beginning is that there's a number of suttas where the Buddha says that he only teaches one thing. You can understand this one thing that the Buddha teaches, then you can gain value from that. And every time you remember that, you can gain value from it again. What
Mm.
the Buddha
Di-
taught was dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Yes, you can ask questions anytime.
oh, I'm sorry. I was just wondering if you meant to turn off your video. I can't see you any longer. If you
Uh,
need to, that's okay. I was just wondering.
no, no, not at all. You should see it now.
Okay. Yep, we're back. Okay, cool.
Turning it off and turning it back on tends to work. Okay,
Yeah.
so the teaching is dukkha, dukkha nirodha. Now, the first place to start is that the word suffering is a bad translation. That a much better translation would be uh, dissatisfaction. That we're not happy with the way things are,
Mm.
and we want to fix things that we think are broken. And the dukkha nirodha means to bring an end to our dissatisfaction. And the primarily what that means is that we start to see our dissatisfaction and let it go and come back into a state of satisfaction. So fear, anguish, uh, tension, anxiety, all of that kind of stuff, and all the thoughts that go along with them and precede that stuff is an indication that we're not comfortable, we're not happy, we're not satisfied, and that you can move from being dissatisfied into being satisfied, and then it won't last long, and you go back into a state of satisfaction. But really, all we need is to be satisfied. That's all we really need. That's the entire teaching of the Buddha right there, is to stop being dissatisfied and start being satisfied. That in fact the satisfaction, the word has a Pali word for it is called sukha, and sukha is exactly opposite of the word dukkha. So dukkha is dissatisfaction, and sukha is being satisfied. Now, the qualities of satisfaction is that we're free from, um, let us say, fear. Now, I'm not talking about being fearless. I'm talking about being safe and secure. The feeling that you're okay, that you're not under attack, which is different from one who is fearless, which is more like a warrior that is going off into battle with great bravado, right? Bravery. And bravery actually is based upon fear. But if someone goes off, let us say that if somebody who is gearing up for putting on the clothing of going into battle because he um, has some contest or some thing like that, that if he could in fact see that there was no problem, then he wouldn't be gearing up for battle. That in fact, whatever person he thinks of as an enemy, he could in fact prepare dinner for them. So when they show up to fight, he makes friends with them. That's the big difference between feeling safe and secure rather than being fearless, is to recognize that there is no danger. And yet we are trained to think of things as being dangerous. Almost everything is dangerous. And all wars, by the way, start with a preemptive strike, right? And why do people have those preemptive strikes? Is because they're afraid that if I don't do it to him, he's going to do it to me. I've even heard it expressed that do unto others the way that you would do unto them, or the way that they would do unto you, only do it first. Get them first, right? Offense is better than a good offense is better than a good defense. You naturally have heard that expression before, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the whole point about offense and defense has to do with we're not satisfied with the way things are. If we're satisfied with the way things are, then there is no offense, there is no defense, there's no reason to compete. And so this is the basic foundation of the teaching of the Buddha. And we recognize that there is dissatisfactions in the world. That's the first noble truth. And the second noble truth is that there's a cause for it. For instance, when someone gets injured, the injury is not the cause of their dissatisfaction, is the fact that they don't like the injury. That's what causes the dissatisfaction. That in fact, you've had patients or you've run across people that have had injuries, maybe even recently, and they say, oh, there's nothing to it. Doesn't bother me. So they're actually satisfied with the injury. But most people, in fact, especially the ones who wear the label hypochondriac, any tiny little thing that happens to them, they become dissatisfied because of their desire. Mm-hmm. Okay. So
the one thing that is coming up pretty strongly for me is that are there not things that are dangerous? Like yesterday, today I almost set stuff on. Well, I did set 2 things on fire today by accident.
can you repeat that?
I set 2 things on fire today by accident. One was my headphones by putting it too close to the candle, and the other I accidentally burnt dinner on the pan because I walked away. Are there not things that are dangerous than to defend against?
Well, you can put the headphones out.
I did, yeah. I duct tape them to fix them.
Okay, so they're good to go. No problem. No worries. Or you can just get some new ones. They're cheap enough.
Oh, not these, but I like these. Anyway, yes.
Well, but they're manufactured, so you can get another pair. And you have a choice of are you going to replace it or not. But the real important choice is can you be happy and satisfied even when you've lost something? Because in fact, loss is one of the major reasons for people being dissatisfied. They don't like it.
I think I could be satisfied in the face of loss, but I don't know that I could be satisfied with the loss.
You wouldn't be satisfied with what?
As long as the loss is still in front of me or in me. Does that make sense?
I don't understand. Not yet.
I can avert my attention to something else aside and not think about the loss, but being happy with the loss is not something that, or satisfied with the loss is not. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes. So the first thing then we learn to do is to divert, is to get away from it.
I'm pretty good at that.
And then we recognize that everything is temporary, that we really don't own anything, that those headphones are not yours, that they belong to the environment. And in this case, they belong to the fire.
No, not yet.
And you didn't like that. You didn't like the fire owning your headphones because you said, oh, they're my headphones, not the fire's headphones.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you didn't like it, but then you put it out, you repaired it, and now you're back being satisfied again.
Yeah.
All right. So that's exactly what we need to do with everything in life, as long as we can remember. We need to remember that things are they're not inherently dukkha, but that we decide that they're dukkha. In fact, you may even have heard expressions. There was a bumper sticker that was very common in the 1980s, and I think that it was part of the budding of the atheistic mindset, where people were coming out of Christianity slowly. And this bumper sticker had the phrase, "Life is shit, and then you die." But life itself is not shit. That's the whole point, is that we cling to life, that there is that instinct that we have called the self-preservation instinct, that being alive has that DNA quality of wanting to remain alive, that we don't want to be in danger, that we want to not die. That in fact, that's one of the major issues about being a medical doctor, is that people want you to make sure that they don't die, and then they die anyway.
That's true.
Not one doctor has ever had a patient that survived. They all die. The only possibility is that the doctor dies first.
As long as they don't sue me, it's okay.
You haven't seen anybody die yet, huh?
No, I've seen people die. Yes, I have.
Yeah. And doctors don't like it when people die.
Unless they're suffering real bad and hooked up to all these ventilators and lines, and they're bloated up like already half dead pig. In that case, we are happy to see them pass. Yes.
Well, actually, what's going on is that not that the body is deteriorating, but that the patient doesn't like that. They don't want to die. They don't want the body to deteriorate. It's going to happen anyway. But they haven't been well trained in the Dhamma, so that they don't like it. That in fact, old age, sickness, and death happens to everybody, except for a few, the really unlucky ones, the ones who die before they get sick, before they get old. But if you had a choice about getting old or not, wouldn't you choose to get old, knowing that by getting old, you're also going to be subject to sickness and old age?
Well, I don't really have a choice, right? I don't know if I would make that choice, but I don't think I have it.
Yes, you do. The choice is that can you accept it, whatever happens or not? Can you be okay with that?
That sounds more doable. Maybe.
This is part of the reason why the Buddha would have some of the monks go to the charnel ground to watch corpses decay. You probably heard about that.
Yeah.
And some teachers keep a video around of an autopsy.
I've got plenty of memories.
Have you ever done or been involved with an actual autopsy, in the room with one? I'm sure you have. No?
Not a fresh one. We've worked with cadavers, and I've been in surgeries. I've been with bodies shortly after they expire, but
okay. So it's a matter of getting used to it. That the first body that you run across probably freaks you out. That does everybody. And most people, in fact, that's one of the biggest parts of the business of a hospital, is to deal with the dead. The families don't want their relatives to die in bed at home. We want to take them to the hospital, right? Because they don't want to have to deal with a corpse in the house.
Some people prefer to have them die in the house. The hospital's not exactly a pleasant place to die, but you're right. Yeah, I understand what you mean.
Well, people don't like to deal with death, but some people can do it. Just like if someone is, let us say, squeamish about major injuries like a compound fractured arm, If they're squeamish, then they're not going to be able to set it. So you have to get over that squeamishness. In order to actually be a good doctor, you have to stop being squeamish. You have to stop passing out at the autopsy table.
Or at least pretending that it doesn't bother you.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you can learn to be a doctor around that kind of stuff, then you can learn to be a doctor around your own compound fractures. That, in fact, one of the things that happened with that squeamishness is that people identify with, oh, his arm hurts, oh, my poor arm also, that we identify with things. But a doctor has to learn that, oh, that kid's arm is broken, but my arms are not broken. And I can help set that arm and put it into a cast without ever thinking about getting squeamish. All right. So this is the whole point about the second noble truth is that all of that squeamishness that we have, all those fears, all those anxieties are not part of the territory. It's part of the mental map that we make. Have you ever heard of NLP? Probably you have. Neuro-linguistic programming. It was a hot topic starting in the 1970s and 80s.
I've seen the term. I don't know exactly what it means, though.
Okay, all right. Well, if you're a neurologist, then you probably have heard of neuro-linguistic programming. Okay, look at the word itself, neuro-linguistic. The linguistic means that we really talk ourselves into a program that we have in the mind. And we basically, from childhood, have learned to talk ourselves into feeling bad. And now what we're going to practice is talking yourself out of that state of feeling bad. Talk yourself into feeling good. Reprogramming. So in this NLP, they talk about the map is not the territory. Have you ever heard of that expression?
Yeah.
Okay. The map that we have in our minds is not the territory. And then, in fact, some clever examples of that is that people having automobile accidents because they're looking at the map on their cell phone. They're not watching where they're going. They're in the map. All right. So we start constructing mental maps, and the construction of the mental maps and the reconstruction of the mental maps, there's a word for it called perception. And what perception is making shit up. And that stuff that we make up is in the map, not the real territory, not the reality. And so the practice that we're going to present here is to, let us say, less frequently live in a map and more frequently live in the actual reality that is presented by our senses. And when we live in reality and accept reality the way that it is, then we're not suffering. We're not dissatisfied. That generally the dissatisfaction is a perception of dissatisfaction rather than the reality. That a broken bone is a broken bone. The person who has the broken bone, and maybe the mothers or the people around the kid who has the broken bone, they're the ones who suffer with it. But you can see a photo of a broken bone, or you've seen videos or battlefields, or as a doctor, you see people with real broken bones, and we don't perceive it as I, me, or mine, or poor Joe, or whatever like that. That we can just see that broken bone as what it is. And we can see that it needs to be set in order to heal properly. All right. But the people who are suffering with it, oh, poor me, isn't that terrible that the bone is broken? Well, the fact is that if you don't do anything about it, it will not heal properly. But if you set it and leave it still, then it'll be good enough to go 6 weeks, 8 weeks, not long. It'll be okay. So this is the way that we begin to practice the Dhamma, is to recognize that it's because we want things that we're dissatisfied. And that's wanting stuff has the quality of ignorance. We don't know that the suffering that we have is caused by our own mental condition, not because of the reality. For instance, the word pain is merely a word that means that the people who have pain just don't like the sensation, but it really is nothing but a sensation. That basically the broken arm, let us say after it's already cast, it hurts because the kid's probably moving his arm. He won't leave it still. And the arm is sending him a message, leave me alone, let me heal. And so that's where the pain comes from, is actually just a message. And if we would pay attention to the message, then we don't have to call it pain. It's just a sensation. It's a message that the body is giving the mind. So this is a way that we can begin to understand that we have a choice about all the information that we bring in, and that we can begin to choose not to be dissatisfied with it once we can see it. But people don't. They don't see that. They see the sensation of the arm, and then they have pain, and they don't like it. They go to a doctor or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they don't like it. They want it to go away. Go ahead.
Is this not a gradual process? I mean, okay, maybe that's just being cheeky, but like there are some things that I can recognize and put aside easier than I can others.
Mm-hmm. All right. And the more you practice of being able to set the easy things aside, the better you get at it. And so then you can begin to put the bigger things aside. That in fact, the Dhamma is very, very much like going to a gym and learning about lifting weights. That a good beginner, if is going to practice correctly, he starts with small weights and does what we call repetitions, reps, over and over and over again, over and over and over again. And martial arts uses that, sports uses it, in music we use it. But when it comes to meditation, people are wanting quick, easy, instant results. And because they're wanting something, they don't get the quick, easy results. That everything takes time, it takes practice, and what we have to practice is to be satisfied. And so this is why we start with it an easy way, and that in the teaching of the Buddha way back when, 2,500 years ago, he saw the value of seclusion. To get away from all of those people, to get away from all the misery and suffering of the world, to get away from it, come to our own state, and then the only thing that we have to deal with is the crap that we're making up right now. Okay. And then we can stop making that crap up. We can start making up something more wholesome. We can divert the mind out of it. And in fact, one of the little jokes that I tell is, imagine that you're walking down the sidewalk, maybe in front of your house, and there right in the sidewalk is a pile of dog turds, right? Dog shit. The teaching of the Buddha would recommend just step around it, avoid it. Don't do it, see it that it's there so that you can do something about it. But many meditators, and in fact, this is the joke about the Mahasi, if you've ever heard of that. Mahasi, yeah. Okay. What they do is they go get that dog turd, pick it up, take it in the kitchen, and dissect it, look at it, deal with it. And then there's the other practice called the Vajrayana, or the choiceless awareness. They just continue down the sidewalk and step in the dog turd. But the right way to do it is to see it. and then avoid it. And so this is how we practice in the mind, is that we're not having choiceless awareness. Oh, there is dukkha. Oh, no, we don't keep stepping in it. We don't investigate it. We see it for what it is and then throw it out or avoid it or step around it. Diversion. That's the way that we start practice. So when you come across a dog turd in your mind, you can throw that out and say, I don't have to have that thought. So an example would be that you have an argument with someone, and then you sit down for practice what they call meditation. And when you start having thoughts about that argument that you had with your friend or wife or Aunt Susie or whoever, we can say, Aunt Susie is not here. Why should I continue with that argument? Why should I think about it? Let me think about something else that's more wholesome. And so we divert our attention away from that argument and start thinking.
It doesn't go away, though.
Yes, it does. Every time it comes back, we push it back away. It keeps going away and keeps going away and keeps coming back and keeps going away. Everything is temporary. And so the way that we deal with it, instead of, oh no, it keeps coming back, because that's an unwholesome view of it. The wholesome view would be when it comes back, I see you. Because if you can see it, then you can do something about it.
I guess it's so. The reason I say that is, like, sometimes when I I'll just use the word ignore. So if I ignore something or like purposely fight it, it makes it stronger.
Generally, the word ignore has the quality of ignorance. And ignore means that we don't want to look at it. We're not talking about ignoring things. We're talking about seeing it clearly, maybe instantaneously, but you get a quick look, good look, and then you move on. You divert. Ignoring stuff means that's the way that the Vajrayana practice. They're going to ignore that dog turd, and then they step right in it. So this is the practice, is that we have to make changes. This is a real change model, to begin to change the way that we think.
There's a, where I live, there's a, he passed, but there was a homeless man who would sell newspapers. It's called Real Change. And everybody that walked by, he would say, real change, real change. That's why I smiled. Everybody liked him.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're looking at, is can you change? Can you see what we're doing wrong? Not because it's bad, but because it causes us discomfort. And if we can see it, we can change it. And basically what that means is that we can stop being critical of ourselves and start being nurturing towards ourselves and accept ourselves happily, warts and all.
That sounds easier.
So it's not necessarily an improvement model in the sense of you stop doing things that cause trouble. Is that you stop bringing that trouble into the mind to act on it. That we change the mind from being unwholesome, critical. Like the guy who says he wants to go on a diet, and then when he gets to the refrigerator, he's now in conflict with himself. And so the whole point then is that if he knows this, he can avoid going to the refrigerator. Don't go there. The refrigerator is dangerous.
What if the refrigerator follows you around?
Pardon?
The refrigerator follows me around.
No, you carry the refrigerator around. It doesn't follow you on its own. that you're attached to it, that you tied a rope around that refrigerator, you haul it around with great effort, and you call it following you around.
I think you got me there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this is the whole quality of relinquishment, is to let that stuff go. Stop thinking about it and start thinking about something that's easier to deal with. And when we stop what we're doing and take a rest, then we cool off. That this is what the word nibbana means. It only means to just chill, just cool off. Stop doing the things that make us hot and bothered, and just chill, just relax. Recognize that there's nothing to be afraid of, and so let's not be afraid. Let's feel safe and secure. Also, we want to look at the word comfort, is to get the body into a comfortable position. Even if you've got the broken arm, you would want to isolate it or stabilize it, put a sling on it. But most of the kids who have even a sling on their broken arm, they're still moving that arm around. The real way to stabilize it is to strap their hand to their tummy so that they can't move the hand, and then it'll heal better. So with that position, we can really rest because we can stabilize the mind. It becomes stable. And the stableness is actually in the state of relaxation or comfort. And so when we get the mind safe, secure, and comfortable, then we can lean it into the direction of being satisfied. All right. So when we're in that state of satisfaction, that's the third noble truth. And anybody who has any satisfaction in the moment is in the third noble truth, the end of dukkha, right then and there. So it's not a matter of progress, it's a matter of just getting ourselves into that state. It's sort of like turning the light on. You turn the light on and then you've got light. But a lot of people think of their spiritual practice or their practice of improving the mind as like a rheostat. You have to turn it on a little bit at 2%, then later at 3%, then later it's 5%, then many years later it goes to 10%, and we keep cranking up the voltage, hoping someday it's going to go to 100%. And that's how many people live their lives, and so when they come into the teaching of the Buddha, they continue with that mentality. When you first called, we were talking about the difference between Thich Nhat Hanh himself, which has learned that it's just a light switch, and he just throws it on and everything's okay. But all the students, they're struggling because it's not a switch to them, it's a rheostat, it's a volume control, and they're trying to turn it, but all they have to do is just flip it. Got a choice. Right. So you can come out of it right here, right now. So this concept of dukkha, dukkha nirodha is not dukkha, 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 more dukkha. Let me take that dog turd into the kitchen and dissect it and see what it's like, and then put it under the microscope and having to smell it and all of that kind of stuff, which is the way that most people practice. The thing to do is just to see it and leave it alone. Walk away from it. Give it up. And then we're free from it, right then and there. So, the fourth noble truth, then, is that there is a method to do this. There is a way. And that it having been translated into English as a path actually helps people fall into that delusion that it's actually a path that they have to walk, like a bicycle path or a horse path or a highway. So the word way, like the way to do something, an example of that would be that the way to thread a needle is to put a little tape on the needle in a kind of a triangle so that you can get a point. And then the tape will stabilize that thread so that you can thread that needle with it. It's easy if you know what you're doing. But most people will struggle with that flexible thread trying to put it in. And so it winds up taking them a long time when in fact it would be easy to do if they had the right tool, the right equipment, and they had the knowledge to do it. But they're ignorant. They don't know how to thread a needle. And so they wind up struggling with trying to thread the needle. And so this is the way that most people practice anapanasati. But if they follow the actual method that the Buddha uses, it can in fact be easy enough to stabilize things, get it easy enough. And the way that we practice then is with the it's actually an Eightfold Noble Path, but let's look at various features of it. The first thing to look at is that we have to have the right view. Now, when I say view, I'm not talking about a world view or a viewpoint, but rather we're talking about it in the sense of a verb of viewing, looking, seeing what's going on, investigating right here, right now. And if we can see what's going on, see for sure that that thought that I'm having right now is not comfortable, then I can change that thought into a comfortable thought. So we have to also bring in a new point, and this is the real skill that people have to learn. In fact, there's this whole thing of practice is the practice to build a skill. If you were going to learn to play a musical instrument, you have to practice so that you can build the skill. And so musicians start with simple music because you can't just give the sheet music, and a lot of people can't even read sheet music, and you give them the sheet music of the Revolutionary Etude by Chopin, they can't play it. There's a whole lot of stuff that they have to put together to be able to play that piece of music, and that putting all of that together and building those skills then is the skill development that they need. And this practice also has that skill development in one, the most important one, is to remember to look.
Yeah.
This is called sati. It's translated into English as mindfulness, but that word mindfulness doesn't help. A much better word is to remember to look, to wake up and see what's going on right here, right now.
Yep.
To see that you've got a mosquito buzzing about as opposed to being ignorant of it, and then it bites you. So seeing what's going on and remembering to look. Remember to be in our senses rather than in our mind, when in this case, in our perception. That we stop living in the map and start living in reality, because we have to remember to live in what's real. And if we can see the reality of the mind and see that what the reality is that this thought is unwholesome, then we can change it to something wholesome.
Okay.
And so there's various tools that we can have, just like going back to the broken arm point, that putting a sling on that arm to stabilize it is a very, very good thing to do.
Okay.
So we can actually then do that by getting away from it all. This is what seclusion is really all about, is let's get away from everything that's going to mess with the mind so that we can see the mind directly as it is, with all of the unwholesome thoughts that come up, so that we can change those thoughts into something wholesome. All right? So we're now talking about 3 items of the Eightfold Noble Path. One is to remember. The second one is to look, to investigate. And when we see what things are, then we can make a change.
Mm-hmm.
An example of that would be that any thought that you had could be improved. Every thought that you ever had could be improved. And let us say that, in fact, if you ran across a thought that was so magnificent, so marvelous, so wonderful, that can still be improved if you congratulate yourself for having had that thought. So, this is actually the fourth item on the Eightfold Noble Path, and this the Pali for it is Sama Sankappa, and that is that we remember to look, we make a change, and then we reflect upon, I'm better off now. We can have thoughts like, I can do this. I can clean out my mind. I can feel good. I can intentionally feel good. I can intentionally give myself happy thoughts. This takes us out of the victim's position into the winner's position, that I can feel good. I do not need other people to help me. I can do this on my own.
But I can't want to improve.
Well, wanting to improve is sitting there wanting to improve rather than actually doing the improvement.
Mm-hmm.
That's the change. Go ahead and make that change and then be happy that you've made the change. Small or big, you made a change. And now you can congratulate yourself for making that change rather than wanting to change and not change. So wanting enlightenment is not going to work. But congratulating yourself for having woken up and seeing and making a change, that becomes your enlightened right then and there. You just lightened up. You shined a light on it. You saw what it was. You made a change and you lightened up right then and there. That's enlightenment.
Okay, I see the difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we keep doing that. We keep practicing it over and over and over again. We keep repeating, doing those reps, because the habit of the mind is such. You're a neurologist, you know what I'm talking about, that people get habits going. They get neural pathways. And that if they continue with that behavior, then even if the new neurons come in, they'll still behave in the same way that the old ones do. Just like when someone goes to the gym to do repetitions, one of the things that happen is that some of the cells die. But the ones that replace those cells are stronger now, especially muscle cells, because the old ones died because they got exhausted, but the new ones come in are stronger. Well, we need to do that with the neurological system that we have in the brain, too. We have to actually train the mind to come out of those old pathways and to take a new path. And then eventually, over time, those new neurons will get really strong, and the old pathway, the old neurons, will die off, and that whole old habit system becomes weaker. And so it becomes easier to change. It becomes easier to be happy right now because we've been training it.
Yep.
But we have to practice doing that over and over and over again, and practicing actually being good enough. We have to practice being, this is okay. We have to practice satisfaction, because we've been practicing dissatisfaction for many, many years. Every infant, every baby starts off as a victim. They need to be taken care of. They can't do it on their own. But over time, when we grow up, even though we begin to gain capabilities, we still keep that mindset of, I need help.
So we want the satisfaction, not necessarily the feeling good.
And we want other people to make us feel good. We want to go buy the products that the businesses sell so that we would feel good. That's in fact what the automobile companies sell. They don't sell cars, they sell feel good. And people buy cars in order to feel good. Guess what? Once they buy that car, they have that payment. They don't feel
Don't
good.
feel too. Nope.
Doesn't work. All right. So this is why this is called the direct method.
Okay.
The direct method is that you go right straight to feel good. You don't have to get diverted into going and buying clothing so that you feel good because you look good, or you don't have to go get a degree at the university to feel good, that you can just feel good without having to get that university degree. That in fact, the university degrees don't make people feel good. You know that.
Mm. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Before you got that degree, you wanted it and you thought everything was going to be hunky-dory and wonderful. And then you got the degree and you find out, oh no, there's a whole lot more. Now there's more stuff to do. And so the satisfaction of getting degrees and cars and wives and all of that kind of stuff keeps us stuck in the cycle that would be called a triangle. Let us say on this triangle that our intention is to get from A to C.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that we're taught to do it is that, oh, you need B in order to get to C. And so we go the long way around. We come all the way down to B and then all the way over to C, when in fact we could have gone directly from A to C. Take that hypotenuse. It's the shortcut. And so this is the way that we practice is let's short that out, saying that I don't need this and that and the other thing. I don't need enlightenment to be happy. I can be happy directly. I don't need enlightenment to be satisfied and whole. I can feel satisfied and whole directly, right here, right now. Make a change out of wanting to be enlightenment into I'm okay without it. This is the practice of sitting down alone and start looking at what the mind is doing and make a change. Coming out of our dissatisfactions. I'll show her. I'll remember to say this. I thought of something I didn't think of when I was having that argument, and boy, I'm going to let her have it right when I see her, right? And so we're living in a state of dissatisfaction, thinking that we will eventually be satisfied when we can win the argument. But generally, when we get into that argument again, she wants to win too. And so we wind up arguing again. So I argued with her before, then I'm sitting in meditation arguing with her again, still not feeling satisfied. And then I go back and start arguing with her again, and I still don't feel satisfied. When are we ever going to actually feel satisfied? Well, we have to train the mind to feel safe, secure, comfortable, and satisfied. And when you begin to train yourself into that satisfaction, that's when we start to come out of our victimhood. When we begin to feel like that we're the winner here. I'm the boss of my own mind. I can come out of the prison that I manufactured for myself that kept me in a state of dissatisfaction. And for time to time, every time I think about it, I can feel good enough. Don't have to feel marvelous, but I tell you, if you start practicing feeling good enough, good enough, good enough, then it will grow, it will snowball.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So this, in short, is the Eightfold Noble Path that the Buddha teaches of coming out of our victimhood, our attitude of being a loser, of needing something, of oh, poor me, pity parties and all of that, into wow, everything is just great. Everything is fine. No worries, mate. No problems. And so we can start training ourselves with that. Like no place to go and nothing to do, and the grass grows, and the spring comes, and the grass grows all by itself. Don't need me. I'm okay. Everything's going to be all right. Everything is fine. These are the kind of wholesome thoughts that we can train ourselves with to gladden the mind, to change our attitude. To change our attitude from this sucks into, wow, I don't have to suck on it. You probably heard people say when they say that life sucks. Well, the reason life sucks is because you're sucking. You want something. And here you are sucking and sucking and sucking, and your whole life starts to suck. But when we stop sucking and be satisfied with the way things are, then life don't suck no more.
That's pretty good.
And not only that, but we give ourselves such a small soda straw to try to suck whole life into. And we're dissatisfied with the straw that we're sucking through. Instead of just saying, I'm okay without it. So this is what you can add to your practice. We'll leave it here with this much because I think that you've gotten the idea that you can make a change. That when those unwholesome thoughts come, you can recognize them for what they are. And as the skill grows, your skill of being able to detect what is dukkha and what is not dukkha will grow. So that the things that you used to think were, these are okay thoughts, wind up being, oh no, they've got a little dukkha in there, let's fix that. So that I'm completely free from all dissatisfactions right here, right now.
Perfect.
No improvements necessary. It's good enough right now.
I think this is exactly what I was looking for, even if I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I tell you what, why don't you call me after you practice a couple of days or 3? About a week or maybe a few days. Give me a call and we'll continue with this. But this is actually, if you do what I'm told you to do today, you won't need me ever again. But the likelihood of that is quite low because you've already got a lot, like everybody, a lot of old habits.
Thanks for your vote of confidence.
Mm. Okay. Well, we'll see you later.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Take care.
All right. See you soon. And get on those groups and get some friends that are in the Dhamma with you.
Yeah.
Okay? Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll see you. Bye-bye.